All right, so Sharon, did you want to say anything or do you want me to go ahead?
Oh, I think this is the ball's in your court. Take it away.
Okay, thank you. So we have the 2021 budget workshop for community services. And we have with us myself, Jennifer Byerly. We have Dave Windom, Casey Bingham, and who else do you have with you, Dave?
Kathy Shilsay, Kel Rowan,
Alex Pacey.
And we have Sharon Trask, Kevin Schutte, Don Twitty, Diedrich Allen, Diane Zorn, Frank Pinter, and Randy Netherland. So with that, before we begin, I just wanted to say that I do have a 2021 budget overview, but I wanted to see if we could push that off until November 2nd, Monday, November 2nd, when we're all done with current expense.
I'm good with that.
Works for me.
Okay, thank you.
Same, but I don't mind if you share stuff early.
Okay, great, thank you. So with that, Dave, you can go ahead and start on your presentation for your department.
Okay, so good morning, or actually good afternoon, commissioners. You should have in your packets our budget narrative, which follows the same format as last year, but it's much slimmed down. We took a lot of things out, kept it to some of the more critical things, and to give you an idea about the budget as a whole, much of it remains the same, especially on the public health side, in that a lot of what we're doing there is driven by grants. So we talked about the grants in the last couple of commission meetings, so we'll circle back to that. On the community development side, our major changes are really to our revenue. We are projecting our revenue to increase. We did look at current OFM numbers and estimations over the next 4 years of what our influx is going to be. So births and deaths, we're actually ahead on deaths. Typically about 70 more people die than are born here. So all of our population growth is due to in-migration. And we're talking about 1,000 people a year to in-migration at this point is what OFM is estimating. And that's holding up pretty well with what we're seeing in building permits and planning and like activities. So if you would like, let's start off with revenue on 001, community development. Everything's fogging up. So the major change really is from our 2020 budget, which is 1.79 million. We're estimating, and we just lost everything, I think.
Nope, we're doing screen share.
Oh, okay, screen share, okay. Start with me. To 2.177 million. And really that's based on our estimation of revenue that's coming in. We saw no slowdown last winter in any of our permitting efforts, whether it was on-site septic or building or planning. So given what's going on in the Seattle market, we expect to see that continue. So we're seeing, I think, our biggest push is out of Seattle into the north end of the county. So that's where the revenue is being generated, is from that push of people getting out of the city and coming to Mason County. So any questions on revenue?
Not from me.
Okay, seeing no questions on revenue, let's go ahead and go to expense. In our expenses, we had 4 PLRs, and those PLRs had really already been addressed in commission meetings. They're still listed here. So we had a permit specialist we added a lead building pay inspector. Let's see, we added another planner, and then we changed the management from 2 managers to a single manager at a higher level of pay. And of course, we moved money around from the other manager position. So it's kind of a wash on that. But those are the major PLRs that went with community development. Nothing else really jumps out. It's just a continuation of business. Most of the changes we've made have been made in conjunction with adjustments 2020, which we've been submitting since June of this year. So there should be no big surprises there. Okay, any questions on that? The two things we did have higher expenses on this year, which we're hoping not to next year, was hearing examiner and fire. So we have more fire investigations, and that just kind of varies year to year. And of course, hearing examiner has been very busy this year.
Dave, I did just want to point out that the latest change on the positions is not in this budget.
Okay.
Is that for the lead?
I do see that the lead pay for the building inspector is in the PLRs, but the change for and I forget exactly what it is, but moving somebody up to a 40, pay 40 is not included in here on the excuse me, the non-union salary scale.
That's for the position that was just created, correct?
Okay, right.
Do we have the number so I can keep it in my head at least?
I don't have that number with me, no, but I can get it.
Please.
The cost for the bill for UGA, the EIS.
Right, that's 100,000, and that will be that's already in process, so that will be wrapped up next year.
How's that going to work? Because I thought we had that included in this year's budget.
It was included in this year's budget, $199,000, the full amount. And it ends April of next year, and we have not spent 50% of the budget as of when I did preliminary. And I talked to Kel, and we said it would be a safe estimate to the other half into 2021.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Got it.
Any other questions? Okay, let's go on to public health, which gets a little more complicated.
Can we just let's just do this one real quick. Jennifer, is there anything you want to go through on this so we can move it over if anything's not moved over, or move it?
I mean, really, I think that all of these things, they've already been approved by the commission. So I just want to get verbal approval to move them over into maintenance.
Agreeable with that. Is there anything in there though that we haven't discussed? Planner.
I don't believe so. I think that all of these things have been brought forward. And so the full 283,956 should be moved into maintenance.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that.
I'm good.
I agree.
Thank you.
Okay. So over to public health. And let's start with revenue. And that is going to be the tricky one. So COVID is going to be the thing that is going to be our biggest adjustment this next year. And then whatever the legislature is going to do. So as background, DOH has been, well, actually all state agencies have been given the directive to cut 15% from their budgets, which washes out to local public health. Although for us, it really doesn't, because the programs that DOH is cutting, we don't have in Mason County. So for example, the Ryan White HIV funding goes to a regional hub out of Thurston. So that would be cut there. It won't have a direct impact on us. And what the legislature does beyond that to meet the $8 billion shortfall to $8 billion shortfall remains to be seen. So some of those things will be up in the air until we get into the legislative session, actually through the legislative session. So this is our best look at things without a guarantee of extra COVID dollars coming in, and without taking into account what the legislature is going to do. So just a background. Okay, revenue side, pretty much most of our revenues have been addressed in the latest CON and the latest healthcare authority contracts that just came through in the last 2 weeks. So those really carry us throughout July 1st of next year. And I think the healthcare authority one actually goes a year beyond that. It goes into the end of the biennium. So most of the grants will remain the same. Going through the PLRs, excuse me, we're still in revenue. We're really not looking at any major increases. We talked about an FPHS ask. FPHS will be getting our full amount on January 1st, which last year was a smaller amount. We'll be getting the larger amount this year, but it probably won't be coming in July. So I'm hoping we get everything up front this year. That's really all we have for the revenue side. It's pretty much staying the same. And we'll have to see what COVID does. So that is the biggest thing. If we get no more COVID dollars, we will shift our work back to our grant work, and then we'll have to find some way to deal with COVID case investigation and contact investigation. So we'll probably wind up putting some of that work over to the state. The state is in the process of standing up the rest of their contract for COVID testing and tracking. So we'll see what happens there. My concern is that that takes that piece of work out of the community. So we do have a way to fund ourselves to go back into doing our grant work, but it's the work itself that I'm concerned about. Any questions on revenue?
Well, it'd be tough to send it back to this, or to give it to the state, but if they're not assisting us further with COVID and they kept some of our money anyway.
Well, and that is kind of exactly the thing. My fear is that once we hand over a case to the state, we lose track of that person, not only for testing and contacts, but then any kind of wraparound services that we're already providing that we won't be able to provide for the motel or whether it's food, whatever. And the hub model is not completely set up at a regional basis yet. So Cascade Pacific Action Alliance is working on setting that up, as are the other accountable communities of health. But again, what happens after December 30th? Because their funding is tied the same way our funding is. So I'm not sure what happens after, going into January.
Well, their funding ends December 31st. Our funding ends November 30th. So
yeah,
there is that.
Okay, and let's go over to the expense side, and I'm going to let Casey run through the PLRs.
Okay, I'm going to start with the 117 fund, which is housing. And there's a lot of big numbers going back and forth here. What I'm attempting to do is to not have each vendor have their own expenditure line. I'm applying it into an expenditure line based on the revenue source. So professional services is going up $579,000, but that's going to include all these individual lines for the
Housing providers.
61, one of the fundings for the housing funding. And then, so I had three basically expenditure lines I'm trying to consolidate all these into, which is professional services, CHG professional services, and HEN professional services. So it's going to consolidate all these expenditure lines into one of those three lines. And I mean, the only other increase is there's a $3,000 increase in supplies, and the rest is just boiling those individualized expenditure lines down into the three. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay.
I was going to say, make me go and unmute myself. I'm comfortable with it.
There's a lot of ins and outs, but they're all going to those three expenditure lines. I'm trying to consolidate stuff here. Now I'm on the 150 fund, which is the health fund. And a lot of the differences in health, it comes with varied deliverables for the grant purposes. So increased copier, and we have a copier release and a postage machine, and the costs have just increased over the years. The risk pool, I put an increase in there just because it goes up every year and I don't want to be caught short there. The biggest one is this professional service line.
Oh, 200,000.
The 300,000,
That's the,
and that's due to deliverables. In our grant, we have a lead grant, and we briefed about that for a long time, but it's basically just a pass through. So we're going to be receiving the money, and then it's passed through to another entity, which is ours. So most of these others are pretty. Septic system rebate. We put 20. We got more grant money for that, so that went up $2,500. Registrations, and that's just trying to get more training to our personnel.
RV.
And then repairs and maintenance. We have an RV that we use on an outreach program. And if anything goes wrong with that, it's $1,000. And we already had $300 in there, so I moved it up $700. And this other reduction, there's a reduction in another professional service line, which is in environmental health. And that has to do with a grant that last year we had, one of the deliverables was to have Public Works camera a bunch of sewer lines. And that was going to cost $70-some thousand. That's not needed in next year's deliverables. That's why that one went down. I think I've hit on them all. Are there any questions about those ones?
So did you say that the 300,000 was a pass through?
Yes, through the lead grant.
Oh, right. Gotcha. Okay.
Now I'm in the 164 fund, which is the mental health.
Casey, before you move on to that, can we go over the clerical position that I have in budget level 3 and that you don't have in budget level 2, or in your budget?
Well, the halftime.
I believe it's a full-time. It's 47,921 just for the salary.
What line are we looking at?
Under extra help.
Yeah, it's under extra help.
That extra help was brought in for COVID.
And it won't be there.
Right now, we don't have funding for them to be there. That extra help was added in an amendment back in for the June amendment.
Okay.
Those are the extra 3 contact tracers that we're using.
We have them right now,
We have them
yes.
right
but
now, right?
Actually, when that was amended, that was Joy.
So you got
Okay, I
that.
just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page with that it will go, be removed from the budget.
Are they frozen?
Are you asking?
We're back.
So we're removing that out, and everybody's good with that,
Yeah.
that position. Okay.
Should we get COVID dollars, we'll have to come back and address that. But we'll have to address a number of things. Should we get some more COVID dollars?
Okay, so I'll take that out of budget level 3 and move that amount into ending fund balance.
Should I proceed?
Yeah, good with me.
Good with me.
Now I'm on the mental health fund, or fund 164. And the there's an increased amount for expenditure of 31,000 that goes to Thurston County Mental Health. And that's because the revenue moves up. So it's in and out. The revenue was accepted, but the expenditure wasn't, but they matched it identically. Whatever received from the property taxes goes directly to Thurston County. And then chemical dependency contracts, that's a program, it's a CPWI, that's the program we talked about this morning in briefing. And that's just the amount of pass-through that goes out, and we're budgeting that we're gonna have a decrease of $783 going out because of contracts. Travel, this is also the CPWI, that contract we talked about today. They pay for the program coordinator of that to do various travels to different seminars and educational meetings. Risk pool insurance is, again, I just add a little bit each year to make sure it's covered. And then transfer out to the jail. Last year they asked for 150,000, and this year all I got for an ask was 48,000. So I'm reducing that by 102,000.
So on the jail, the transfer out, so I have it in budget level 3 as 150,000. So we have a meeting actually tomorrow to talk about that. We had increased the revenue for TST to 875,000 to correspond with the sales tax for the general fund, which is 6,225,000. So with that 875,000, the resolution to distribute the funding out of TST will support the amounts that are in the maintenance level budget. So I think that's something that we need to talk about more, the transfer out to the jail.
Well, I'm going by what they asked for.
So they only asked for 48,000?
That was what I got, yes.
If I can interject for a moment, their ask has been 150,000 year after year after year. I mean, they specifically came to you and said they only need.
Shouldn't it show up on their revenue?
It came through a program, it was Lydia that was talking to me about it, and she said they only had $48,000 worth of expenditures for next year that were allowable.
Jennifer, what does it say on the sheriff's revenue side?
I believe that it did start out with 48,000, and I have talked to them about moving it up to 150,000. And after talking to them, I mean, they believe that they have expenditures to substantiate well over 150,000. So we're having a meeting to kind of, talk about, kind of clear up some of the uncertainties around, what exactly is needed to claim this full 150,000. So that meeting is tomorrow. Hopefully we'll come to some resolution on that. So far this year, I mean, they're getting about 15,000 a quarter, and that's on bare minimum things. So, I mean, that's 60,000. So I think that maybe, and this is just my own interpretation, I think maybe they were told there was only 48,000 available, and maybe that's why they put in 48,000. I'm not positive about that.
And either way, it's okay. I mean, whatever is decided, that can go in there. I'm just was trying to put it down to where I thought was what the appropriate level was.
Right.
I think this has been a weird one since we started putting the 150,000 in there, and I think we've always been chasing it to get it to that $150,000 level, and so I think that's what deserves a little bit more investigation as to whether or not they can support it, and whether or not that's that it falls within those guidelines. So I think my suggestion would be leave it an open question, and we can come back and and fix that, later on. I don't think it's that huge of a deal. I think there's definitely the capacity in the TST fund one way or the other. So let's just kind of track it down. The other thing, and I don't know if this would be the appropriate time to mention this or not, but I had a conversation last week with the undersheriff regarding their mental health officer ask. And one of the things that we talked about and is as a potential is using a model that Kitsap County uses that funds a behavioral health navigator out of their TST. And so just for Dave, Casey, and then the commission and Jennifer, keep that in the back of your mind as well as a potential for that position. The undersheriff is tracking down a scope of work and job description for that position so that we can see if it would make sense for what we're doing with our TST. But I think that might be a way to also address that issue through this fund.
Right. So I did have a conversation with the sheriff and Chief Sperling about that very thing and talked about how that might look. I think with the position as it's shown here, money coming out of the mental health is supposed to be used for mental health services in the jail. And there was some question, I think, about whether it was going to mental health or to the regular ARNP services at the jail, which is, if you're not doing one, you're doing the other. Yeah, the sheriff is definitely interested in moving forward with a mental health deputy. So
yeah, they had that as part of their budget ask, and so it's not a sworn officer position. It would be essentially, I mean, kind of a caseworker that's embedded with them, and there's a few directions that they could go. So I think the clearest connection there, and this is, just to be clear, this is separate from the $150,000 for the jail. I just was using that as a segue, I guess. But they have to kind of figure out what the scope of work is. And if Kitsap is able to use TST to fund a similar position, I think it's worth us taking a look at as well.
yeah, I think so. It might give us a solution to what do we do with people and kind of the conflict that comes with getting them medically assessed at the hospital. If we could have an initial screening in the field that doesn't have to go to the hospital first, that might save everybody some money too. So
yeah, so I think so I guess, kind of the moral of my story is just like, if we could maybe leave this part open and just revisit it once we have a little bit more clarity on some of those other things, I think we'll be in a okay position.
okay.
So is that fair? Leave as a PLR for now?
I'm agreeable with that.
Okay,
I think so. Yep.
thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions on PLRs for public health? Okay, back to you, Jennifer.
Okay, so the rest of these transfers out, I just want to clarify that these dollar amounts I have changed, and they are substantiated now that the revenue has increased to the 875,000. So I just wanted to check and make sure that the board is okay with increasing these dollar amounts as well, and moving these out of the PLR column.
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. So we're good to use the budget level 3. And the prosecutor's ask actually went down, so that kind of offsets some of that, but just wanted to clarify and make sure we're on the same page on that.
Did he say why? I don't recall from our briefing with him.
Yeah, they, so I talked to Darcy about that, and she said that they have I believe it's a different attorney that's in that position that's at a lower range. And so the amount billed will be lower.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah. And then something that we haven't really talked about is the transfer in. I guess we talked about it at the very beginning, but the transfer in to the health department from current expense, that is 300 and, what is it?
376,255.
Thank you. So, so that dollar amount, I'm not sure that we need all of that. Do you want to speak to that, Casey and Dave?
If we don't get COVID, we will need all of that amount. You know, we've gone from, in 2006, 719, 248 down to 376, 255, and it's never come back up in the last 4 years. So yeah, we do. We will need that funding.
Can you kind of explain that one to me? Just give me some, I'm still fairly new at this, so any additional information you can give me is appreciated.
So, yeah, so the county contribution covers all those things that aren't covered by grants or fee for service. So, for example, communicable disease is not something we have to do as a county, but it's not funded by grants, and it's not funded by a fee for service. You don't charge people for tracking down the Hep C or anything like that, or tuberculosis. So there are those funds that are necessary for us to provide foundational public health services for which there is no other funding attached, and that's what that goes to.
And so this is an amount that's been in previous.
Right, so if you look at the budget narrative on page 5, it shows a graph of what has happened with the county contributions over the years. And I think the narrative for it is actually on page 6.
Jen, as they're kind of looking for that, can you maybe speak to why you reached the conclusion you did?
Yeah, so I mean, just looking at their budget, they have an ending fund balance in budget level 3 of 457,000. You know, not including the PLR changes. So you know, we'll see what that is once we move everything over. But I don't think it's going to change.
Oh, if I may,
drastically. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
So in 2015, the state was unable to come to a budget decision, and the ending fund balance is what allowed public health to work throughout the summer while the state shut down. And we could have, you know, this gives public health the ability to at least coast for a month with the state shut down rather than us closing our doors. So, I mean, there's no way in public health anymore. The way public health is funded through grants. It used to be we received our grant money up front. What wasn't left at the end of the year, or wasn't spent at the end of the year, was moved into a ending fund balance, and you were able to build a fund balance. Now it's all reimbursement, and the only way we have any kind of a fund balance is really off of the county contributions.
Is there a way just to set this up as a restricted reserve? Jen?
I don't think that that's necessary right at this moment in time. And what I'm thinking, I mean, I think it's more of a cash flow issue rather than, you know, because I mean, they're showing 457,000, but but yeah, I feel like we need to analyze this a little bit closer and make sure, if they're not getting those grants, or if they're getting prepaid grants, we don't want to use that money to carry them through. I don't think, restricting it is going to do anything. I mean, if it's ending
I
fund
was saying that
balance.
because of the way he was couching it, making sure we had funds, if we don't reach a budget agreement like they did that year and everything went crazy, they did live off of that, I remember. It's odd to set up a independent, a restricted fund for that in this, but at the same time, I'm just looking at being able to keep the number there and still have it available. I don't care if restricted.
Well,
Just don't want it being reached into unless we all agree to reach into it. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, I mean, and I think, the purpose of having that ending fund balance unencumbered is so that they can't spend it. So, that makes it a little more flexible for the board and, to decide if you want to have them spend it or not, just leave it in ending fund balance. I don't think that restricting it is really going to do anything, because really all ending fund balances are restricted unless you
And
put
because
it into a budget amendment.
because it's a department and not a elected department, we are the ones that control that then.
In all of the funds, you control the ending fund balance in this budget process.
I mean, the spending of that.
Yeah, if it's in an ending fund balance and it's not within their budget, they can't spend it. Does that?
Yeah, so it comes to us, and so I'm comfortable with it, is what I'm saying. If that's the case, the idea of leaving something there that can be just dipped into, I'm never comfortable with. But if it's kind of restricted because it has to come to us, then 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and it is there in case something happens.
Along those lines, what would be the difference between doing it that way and just addressing this through a supplemental if things go off the rails at the legislature?
It's just the timing of it. Yeah, it really doesn't make a difference to me. It's not like they, as long as they have an ending fund balance of, 0 or more, it's a balanced budget. So, it doesn't really matter, I guess.
And it doesn't count against the expenditures in our overall budget, right? Because it's just sitting there. It's not in an expenditure line.
Right, that's correct. Where it makes a difference is where, the transfer out of the general fund and into health. If they don't truly need it, then we can lower that. But like Dave is saying, he doesn't know if they need it or not. So, of course, he's more comfortable having it in there in case they do need it. So yeah, it's really a board decision whether you want to lower that amount or keep it in, or alter it, whatever you want to do.
Because it doesn't affect our bottom line for how it looks for being in balance, I don't mind it staying there. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I could go along with that. I think that's fine.
Okay.
With it also, as long as it's okay with the auditor. If when we get audited, they give us a thumbs up, I'm good with that.
You have to do it to find out.
That's not encouraging, Kevin.
But it's accurate.
I can interject for a moment as well. The other issue, and Jennifer highlighted that, is cash flow. In theory, on January 2, the department doesn't, through the first quarter of 2021, the department doesn't have any revenue sources coming in to cover its expenditures. And it may need it for cash flow purposes to cover them until until the taxes come in April. So it can also serve as a tool for cash flow through that first quarter of the year.
So are you saying you don't have any problem with us just leaving it like it is either, Frank?
I would agree. The only difference is if you reduce it, that money on the general fund side increases our ending fund balance, and it reduces their ending fund balance. That's the only difference. They can't spend it because they have to come to the board to get authority to spend it. So,
Having gone through that budget issue those years ago, I think it's a smart move because it's still there for us if we need it. All we have to do as commissioners is remember it's there. Sorry, Dave. If it ends up being needed, we're coming to your door to take it. No.
and it does help his cash flow in the first quarter of the year.
Yeah, because really all of our grants anymore are reimbursed grants. You have to have the cash in the bank ahead of time before you can build a grant. So, and a lot of these grants don't pay for a lot of the indirect expenses either. So a good portion of this funding pays our indirect expenses.
Yeah, and I mean that 372,000. It has not increased in the last several years at least. So that's a good thing that it's not going up.
Yeah, not since 2010.
So that's a rarity, I would say.
So I think we all agree just to keep it. What else we have?
Okay, so we covered 117. That one was pretty easy. The total difference is $288 in that fund, basically just separating everything or condensing everything. So everything else under Fund 150, we are moving over. Is that correct? That as you see, commissioners? There's a total of 150,000.
Other than what we were talking about for the sheriff's department, we're going to wait on that.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that one. That one's down below. Okay. Okay, so I think we're good on everything else.
And that's all I have.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so now we're moving into support services.
What's the tab number on that one, please?
Oh, that one is under, it should be under support services.
I meant, do you have a number?
Oh, yes, 001090. And since we signed on, we had Patsy Robinson and Loretta Swanson join in to the meeting. And let me know if you're ready to begin, commissioners.
Ready?
Okay, so ready? Okay, thank you. So ours are pretty easy. We have just 2 PLRs in non-departmental. And one of them, number one, was actually related to the auditor's PLR, moving the recording position out of auditor's O&M and into current expense under the auditors. So this 1,129 was the auditor's O&M portion of that half-time position paid out of Fund 104. It will now be paid for out of non-departmental as part of current expense, as part of moving that position into the auditors, into the general fund. So that one I already marked as approved. And then we have 100,000 for motor pool professional services. And this is a line that we added in case vehicles are wrecked and we have to replace them, mainly for the sheriff department vehicles, since we don't have the full coverage on those vehicles. So if there's an accident and we have to replace them, we have to do it on the county's dime.
We're going to need to show that in the bottom line of when we're doing that, the part on the motor pool site, we can keep track of how much money overall this is costing.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. And this isn't a real cost right now, it's just an estimate. So yeah, we just plugged 100,000, figuring that's for roughly 2 vehicles. And then the other PLR that we have is 60,000 for an increase to property insurance and risk management. So questions or comments on those 2 PLRs?
So you have the EDC, it says for $70,000, this number may change.
For temporary, is anybody comfortable with putting it in at 90 for the moment?
For the 100,000?
The EDC.
So change the 70,000 to 90,000.
That's what I would request, where I think is where we're probably going with it. I haven't seen the numbers, but I know the conversations. And I myself, even though I fought all their increases in the past the way they did it, I can't think of a time where I've been more supportive of an increase in that line item.
Are you referring to the 0.09 funds?
In return,
That's what it would be, where it would be, is in the 09 funds, right?
this one is it is 103 558 70549 10 or 010.
Yeah. So so what did you want to change that to?
I was just wondering why it says the number may change, so I was just wondering why the number might change.
Oh, that was the budget from last year, and the I don't believe they had their meeting yet. So I just put a note in there as a placeholder in case there was a different number that the board had decided on.
And part of this morning's conversation was to increase their allocation for assistance for salaries due to the COVID functions that they're doing. But just thinking about it, this is for 2021.
Right.
And the COVID dollars are only for 2020.
Yeah, I'm not talking about a request for COVID. I'm talking about an overall request. They've been asking us for many years for the same request, and we've always turned them down. I know, because I'm the one that always fought it. I expect we'll have the same request this year, except for I myself personally do not want to fight it this year. I think it's well deserved.
Yeah, my understanding of it was that it's not. There's two conversations. One is administering the COVID CARES grant money. There's a $25,000 fee for that, but then the potential to look at an increase in our '09 contribution.
I agree with that. That's what I think is happening.
So, are you suggesting a 20,000 more?
That's my suggestion. I don't know where we'll end up, but it'd be nice to have it in the budget now when we're looking at the numbers.
Right.
I would be fine with that as a placeholder, with the caveat of we need to see what their request is going to be.
Agree.
We can adjust from there, but as a placeholder, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, me too.
So placeholder of $90,000 total.
Yes. For me.
Yeah.
And are you all three in agreement on that?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so before we move on, so on the 100,000 for motor pool services and the 60,000 for risk management property insurance, what did you want to do on those? The 60,000 really, the risk management and the property insurance, that is more of a maintenance item, I believe. I mean,
That's a reality number. It's not a guess number like the other one.
Yeah.
All that maintenance.
Okay. Are we in agreement on that?
Yep.
Thank you. And then the 100,000, did you want to hold off on that, or do you want to?
Well, let's bounce that around for a minute. That shows as basically as something that will affect our numbers in and out when we don't even know we're going to have an issue. If we have an issue, it comes out of the general fund anyway, and it would come out of ending fund balance. We'd have to do it through an action. Or we do this, it shows it up in our budget as another 100,000 we have to come up with. And it's there and we don't have to do any action if there's an accident. Is that couching it correctly?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that we could hold off. And if there is a wrecked car, we can do an amendment next year.
So earlier this year, like 2 days into getting the fleet replaced, we had an accident.
Yeah.
I assume that car was totaled. How did we handle that?
So that one wasn't the fault of the employee, I don't believe.
That's correct.
Right.
And it was not a sheriff's vehicle. It was a regular vehicle and it was covered under our insurance program. So Enterprise simply will replace that vehicle for us at no cost.
So
this is predominantly only for sheriff's vehicle pursuit vehicles. All other vehicles are covered under insurance. We cannot get insurance for pursuit vehicles. So if the pursuit vehicle is damaged, it's covered under our costs. And when we looked at the ER&R versus and the enterprise conversion, there was no way for us to determine exactly how much money was spent by ER&R for accidents under the pursuit vehicles. So this is just a guess at what we might have to come up with should there be 2 vehicles destroyed by the sheriff's office.
This first year, I'd sure like to keep everything really tight so we don't lose track of how much the costs are and what kind of impact this is having. I prefer that we probably not do this one this year, but the money is there in ending fund. If we want to, we could even create a reserve line later on for such things. But I'm comfortable with it not even being there because we'll have it in the ending fund. That's all this is. To take 100,000 and just plop it somewhere Just doesn't seem proper right now.
I'll add to that. We have a vehicle reserve.
Yeah, there you go.
$525,000.
So what is that? What is that intended use? How is that different than what this would be? That's fully funded, right?
Yep.
Yes. And it could be used for that purpose.
I'm good with that. I like that.
Argue that it should be used for that purpose.
Yeah, I agree.
Agreed. It would have to come back before us anyway, right?
Okay.
It would what? Sorry, Sharon.
It would have to come back before us anyway.
It would have to come back.
If
Oh,
we have an expenditure like that, it would come before us anyway. Yes.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you. So we'll keep that as a PLR. So we're putting in a $90,000 placeholder on Fund 103, sales and use.
Jennifer, as you scroll, Frank, our payment out of 103 to the Shelton City Sewer,
Mhm.
how many more years do we have left on that? Do you have a ballpark?
I'm thinking less than 10. Oh, there she's going for it.
Now that I know you can all see this.
I was going to say no emails this time, Jennifer. Just stick to the Excel spreadsheets.
That was funny. The sheriff's part. That's not ours.
So we have until 2026.
Now it goes down usually though too, doesn't it? What are we at now?
So we are at, for 2021, we're at 113,325. So it goes down slightly every year.
Just last year, it was 114,885.
Yeah. Is there anything you wanted to do with that, Commissioner, or just for knowledge?
Just for knowledge, I don't think they would be amenable to a change.
Not this year.
Makes you wonder though if we could do some early payoff for them at some point too. Save some money in the long run.
Agreed.
That'd be cool. Sure, they'd appreciate that as well.
So the next PLRs that we have are in REIT Fund 350. We have 140,000 for re-roofing building number 3 and building number 8 at a cost of 70,000 each. And then we have a reduction in capital improvements to the judicial buildings of 716,456, and that's to reduce building 10.
I know this isn't the time, but Commissioner Schutte, you and I have had this discussion in the past more than Commissioner Trask, but could we have that conversation here shortly about divvying up some money per district so we can start going for some grants and stuff in our districts, as we've talked about before, 1 year one, 1 year another?
You mean in the parks?
Yeah, or into whatever we want for 09 for developments. I myself, out in my area, I know there's that need for those ball fields, those soccer fields and football field that we don't have out there. I also know that if we wanted to have a conversation of a skate park for the north end, that would have to come there and only be if we were able to get granting for it.
Yeah, we can bring a planning briefing together for the board in regards to REIT 2 funds and grants available through the RCO.
And I don't know if you want any more explanation on you know, these two items, the roof and then the reduction on the capital improvements. Kelly Frazier can probably speak to that, or Frank better than I can.
I think we've already spoke on that, haven't we?
The only question I would have isn't necessarily related to that project, but with the freed up capacity, what would be some of Kelly's other priorities? How's that getting repurposed, I guess?
Or is
I can speak to that. I would like to definitely do a recite on building the juvenile detention center. I would like to put a roof on building 8 as it's at its end, and maybe a roof onto building 3. But other than that, I mean, besides paint job here and there and stuff like that, I think I'm in fairly good shape.
when we're looking at 70K per pop, is there any way that you could do some of that, our staff, on some of the smaller buildings?
I would do 90% of that stuff in-house. I guess I wouldn't do the roofing. I would do the painting and I would probably do the recite over there and stuff like that.
It just seems that 70K, we're being taken advantage of a little bit when it comes to the roofing.
Unfortunately, we have to pay the prevailing wage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
unless we do it internally. And in the past, we've had discussions about bringing on staff for 1 year or so to do that. It may be much cheaper and more beneficial to the county. But I'll leave that for Kelly to look at and to bring to us if he thinks that's a possibility.
I can surely look into it.
Does
I mean,
that money
to
could
tell
be,
you the truth, we ultimately brought a painter on, and I think you can go out and look at some of the outside of the buildings. They're looking pretty good. And,
yeah.
bonus to having a painter on. I mean, I would love to bring a HVAC guy on or a roofer on. Unfortunately, they can make more money usually on the outside than they can coming to work for the county.
Yeah, but with these two and with all the benefits to it, the 70 grand twice, plus if you did a third one, that's 210 plus the smaller building. I don't know what they charge on that. Let's just say 40, so 250K could go a long ways with another employee or 2 employees for several years. But again, I'll leave that up to you to think about and bring to us, please.
So for now, on these two items, what do you want to do with those, commissioners?
I say keep them, move them in.
I agree.
Move to maintenance.
Yeah.
So the totals will be 140, okay, and 1 million.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to, that was the only 2 items that we had for REIT 1. And so now in REIT 2, we don't have any open PLRs. But I think REIT 2 is the one that you're asking about, the parks and things like that. So we'll come back to you on that.
Yeah, the bummer of that is because we haven't been meeting on it, haven't been talking on it. It's sitting there empty right now, and we need to be going out for grants in order to have a reason to put money in those lines, because we're not looking to build anything and do it all on our own. So I don't know, but as a commission, we haven't sat and decided to actually make this a plan that we want to expend a certain amount in a district each year, or how to do that and move it around so we can get some bigger projects per district. There's a beautiful park up above in Kevin's district that I'll bet you would love to have some investment in it. I only found, funny enough, I had never even noticed it was our park until just 2 years ago or so. So
You talking about Foothills?
no, is
By
that
the
what,
transfer station?
the one up on like Dalby area up there?
Oh, Union?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, there's a beautiful community park that's, I don't know, I think we could probably do more for them.
We've done some work over there last year. We removed trees and repaint it over there at Union Park. So that is on our radar.
Yeah, but is there property maybe available around it? And again, Kevin, I don't mean to jump on yours. I'm just throwing it out there. If there's property, we should probably be looking at that and discussing it as a commission to take advantage of the opportunities.
There seems to be a lot of building right around the park itself, a lot of new building that's going on up in there. That we looked at one actually to purchase one of the lots, and it had a creek that went through it, and there was a few issues with that. I was talking to Kel about
trails.
that.
A nice little trail while the kids are playing or working out there and go through a creek.
Well, yeah, because there is a parking lot you have to go through the creek to get up to the parking lot actually for the park. Yeah.
But again, that's Kevin's area. I'll leave it to Kevin. I just know it exists now.
Well, the next one we were looking at was an RCO one, was for up north for soccer to put in up there. Was going to be our next one for RCO, for one of the big ones.
Yeah, but we could do several at a time if we're planning this out, because we set it up to where so much money goes this one year, so much money goes the next year into this different area, and we just start knocking them off. That's been my goal for several years, and I know Kevin was interested in the past in that. I don't know. We haven't had deeper conversations lately.
Yeah, I would be interested in seeing some recommendations on how we can put something together like that. I think if it doesn't change too much on the staff side, I think it's worth taking a look at.
Yeah.
If I can, there's a huge reserve, or there's a balance there of $3,700,000.
Yeah.
So there are funds available.
That's because we haven't done anything with it.
Correct.
So now we may have enough to do one, $1 million in each area as we can knock them down, because the next year there's going to be more. And it takes a year to do this. So even if we decided to agree to start going for $1 million project per district, that could be huge.
And you're talking with match money from RCO, correct?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So the amount would be huge. We've been doing a lot of it at MCRA in this district, but we need to look at some of the others. But we don't really have a parks group doing much anymore either. So.
One of the things, and I didn't put it in as a PLR here under REIT 2, and I should have, but Loretta will be bringing it up shortly under Russellwood. We had $60,000 budgeted for this year for Russellwood as a transfer out of REIT 2, and it really, I think that they can substantiate and back up about 100,000. So if the board's okay with that, we should probably increase this to 100,000 for Russellwood for 2021.
I have no problem with that, but aren't we looking at refinancing some of these things also?
Well, this is just for, so this is for their debt payment for Russellwood.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, they have about 70,000, and then their repairs and maintenance, and then I believe they had a capital item as well. So I think whether we restructure that debt or keep it as is, I believe that 100,000 would still be able to be substantiated.
And if we don't spend it, it comes back.
Right. Yeah, they definitely have to prove that it was spent.
Yeah. But as a commission, we've been looking at doing some restructuring there. But I'm comfortable with putting that in there if we need to.
Okay.
Same with me. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm good.
Thank you.
I think we have a finance meeting in November. So hopefully we'll have some more information on the debt.
Yeah, and we can always adjust that down if we find that we can't, back that up. But I think that they probably can, and yeah, we'll get to that during Public Works budget meeting. So with that, Fund 500 doesn't have any PLRs. we already brought to the board the revenue and the expense, so I didn't put anything in as a PLR for IT. And then Fund 502 is just the unemployment. And right now we have the unemployment is $200 per person, and the fund seems to be holding pretty steady as far as like fund balance. So I think that 200 is a pretty good number per FTE. What I would like to do starting next year is do it how we're doing all of our other rates, which is based on the previous year's actual. So if the board's good with that, we'll just continue this 1 year where we're budgeting 200 per FTE live, and then start that in 2022's budget process. And it really shouldn't make much of a difference. It won't make a material difference at all. It'll make my life a lot easier in having to, not balance it every time. If we're adding an FTE, go back and, add $200 in at that moment. So
That's cool.
okay.
So do you know, just an idea, I guess, when the feds will audit us for this, the CARES money? So you know that's an additional charge, and we can't pay for that through CARES. So,
well, my understanding is that it will just be audited like any other grant. So this would be audited in next year. So when they come next year, they will be auditing us on what happened this year. So yeah, it won't be till next year. So for the CARES grant to pay for audit costs is a little strange, since the audit costs won't even be here yet.
right.
It'll be done through SAO, and so that'll just be baked into our annual fee that we pay them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that fee could go up as well, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't heard if they're going to be doing more auditing because of it, or if it's going to be the same. I mean, I know that SAO kind of struggles to get done what they have out there already, so I don't know if they're going to be.
They may do it a different year. They may do, we don't know. And it can't be as high as we've had it in the past. So
There were some pretty large numbers there.
Yeah.
Before.
Yep.
So
Yeah, so but I mean, we're looking at like on a global scale. I mean, we're just one of many, so I can't imagine that they would be, adding a ton of staff to do that. I really don't know anything about that.
Hey, Jen, can I ask a clarification on the positions for IT on the 500 account? We do have the one for the 4th position for Julia still in there. I know her temporary one finishes, and then we had one in last year's budget for the position. Do we still have that in there?
We still have, so the position that Julia is in right now is a temporary position, and then we do have in this next year's budget a permanent position.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I just couldn't see it too well. It's really small.
So is there any other questions? That's all that we have for support services.
I have something I'd like to talk to all the commissioners about for a second on that. I'm about to get my rear end kicked out there in the public a little bit. Over the years, support services has taken quite a beating. When times have gotten rough, it's support services that did the greatest cuts. Frank, I need to lean on you for a second. Several years ago, 2017, how many did we cut from our department?
Ooh, from our department. I don't have it at the top of my noggin, but I think it was 3, maybe 4.
I would say I think it's more than that, Frank, for total, because we also laid off some of our part-time. We took a huge hit all the way around. When I'm saying our department, I'm talking about me encompassing everything from parks on down. I think we were at 11 and then 2 part-time.
In taking into consideration all of the departments, it was 11.
Yeah, 11 plus 2 part-time, I believe it was. The only reason why I'm bringing that up is we're creating some new space and new breathing room for some of these other departments. One of our managers got me cornered, and I got to tell you, she's right 100% of the time. We end up cutting our own in order to show the rest of the community will lead through example. But maybe now is come the time for us to have a small conversation about servicing the support service department, because they service not just the commission, not by a long shot. They end up helping to service all of Mason County. When we're talking HR, we're talking some of the other things. So I guess what I'm asking is, before we make our final decision, can we ask our director to look at what the absolute needs are and see if there's an absolute need in this side of the house that we may be able to look at and address this year?
Absolutely.
I haven't heard the other commissioners.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting.
Frank apparently is all for it. So
I know. I'm waiting to hear what the others feel about that.
Yeah, I would be interested in knowing where they think we can make some investments to improve things. I know that there has to be some ideas out there, and so I would concur. I'd ask Frank to go back and talk to his team about kind of what might make sense, and if we can't get it right now in this budget, then I think, like everybody else, they need to put forward their requests, and we need to have those conversations in the budget cycle. So I'm for it.
Yeah, I've been approached as well, and
cornered or approached? Just kidding.
I've never been cornered.
Yeah.
But
no, just kidding.
But I agree, and if we can help our people, I'm all for it. If we can figure out how to fund it, that's even better.
Well, I would hope that they come back with how we fund it too.
Yeah, good luck on that. But
that's probably a given.
I appreciate it, guys. Again, I'm not asking for us to commit right now, but just asking them to go and show us, because in this budget, it's pretty obvious they didn't even show us. They didn't put any of it in. They're still staying close and tight in order to try and help us get where we need to get. I'd sure like to see what's necessary and what may be needed. So thank you, commissioners.
Well, and I think that they've always tried to set the example, and so
the guidelines were the guidelines.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, it makes it difficult in support services. A lot of areas, there's not a lot of room to cut things. So if we were to have gone to a line, bottom line budget, or I'm sorry, the flat line budget, we would have had to cut staff just because we don't have a lot of things. I don't think I've ordered any office supplies this year. Just trying to stay tight on the budget. But anyway, just wanted to throw that in.
Some of this stuff and these changes we're looking at least for this year. Again, we looked at it last year a little bit. I'd like to look at it again this year. One-time budget expenditures to separate them out for what we have money coming in, money going out. That one-time budget expenditures for certain items can be what we have for ending fund capacity that seems to be growing.
Yeah, I'll look at the one time and bring that forward.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're moving on to Public Works.
I need 2 minutes if you don't mind, Madam Chair. Okay.
Okay, so now we have, is everybody ready?
Ready.
All right, we have the 2021 budget workshop for Public Works. So Loretta, and if you want to introduce anyone else. And then we also have Cheryl Hilt in the room. And I think I missed her the last time. So anyway.
Hi, Cheryl.
All right. So here with me is also Finance Manager Victor Rett and Deputy Directors Richard Dickinson and Mike Collins. And we are ready to rumble. Jen, I would like to just talk quickly about process and thank Jennifer and Victor for their time spent going through the various PLRs and just familiarizing Victor with budget. And that was definitely time well spent and very much appreciated. Process-wise, we are focusing today on just 7 funds, correct, Victor and Jen, out of several that Public Works is responsible for, and we'll be focusing on those that have PLRs, if that is agreeable with commissioners.
Sounds good to me.
I'm good.
And just super high level, not a whole lot of change in terms of FTEs across the department. We have, I believe, on the budget spreadsheet, it shows 1 less, maybe 2 FTEs. We have 2 positions that also we are keeping unfilled. If you may recall from previous briefings, and that is in our utilities, one of our utility operators, and then also one of our mechanics out in our ER&R fund. And just to let you know about that. And then speaking of ER&R, Victor and Jennifer met last week, last week, to begin diving into and wrapping up some details on ER&R. You will see budgeted numbers, and they reflect the best to our knowledge across our various funds. But there you will most likely see some refinements in terms of actual rates coming before you later, commissioners. And we also have some follow-up items just in reconciliation between the current expense funds and ER&R. Anything to add to that, Jen and Victor, before we move on that?
No, but
We would also be looking at updating our fund balances as the equipment rental rate has not been established. And so conspicuous by its omission is the internal revenue for rental equipment. So I believe that was last updated at 6:30 at June 30th of the current fiscal year. And those rates have not been charged. And so that would be an update to the revenues in 501.
All right. With that, Jen, did you want to pop up your screen and we'll...
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I thought I was sharing it. I must have
forgotten. Oh, that's okay. And then we can just walk through that and then leave time for commissioner questions or anything that was not addressed on the spreadsheet.
Yeah, so I am sharing it now. Did you want to start on the revenue side or the expenditure side?
Let's start with the revenue side.
And are we just looking at PLRs on the revenue side then, or did you want to go over anything else?
Other than what Victor just mentioned, that we'll need to revisit ending fund balances as we get closer to year end. And most likely we'll come back to commissioners in early 2021 if there's anything that is fairly significantly different than what we were projecting for ending funds, and talk with commissioners about how we wish, what recommendations we have for programming one way or the other, and get commissioner direction.
So is this when we would have that discussion on the actual ending fund number, what it's going to turn out to be, and whether or not we want to ask to have some of that put into the new road program?
That's exactly correct, Commissioner.
Okay, so you're saying you'd rather have that conversation in the beginning of the year instead of during budget then?
We would know more precisely what that number is, yes, at beginning of the year.
Jennifer, what do you think on that? Because that would be a supplemental to even change the revenue and switch it around. Don't want to do that until we have to. So where are you falling on that, if you don't mind?
I mean, really, the ending fund balance is just an estimate, and I don't really see a need to adjust it during the year unless it's really significantly off. I don't really see a benefit in doing that.
So then maybe it's better we have that discussion now about what those numbers are going to be and whether we want to add more into our beginning fund balance for new roads now rather than in the beginning of 2021. Is that what I'm hearing from you, or?
Well, and I think that we need to see where we're going to end up. Like, I mean, if you know, we should go through the expenditures and see where, you know, how that's going to change our beginning fund balance and ending fund, or I'm sorry, just our ending fund balance, and see if there is anything available. I mean, right now we're projecting, it looks like 11,500,000 for a beginning fund balance, and then for an ending, oh, I mean, roughly 8 million. So, I mean, we can definitely adjust that now, you know, once we're all done. But yeah, I don't know. Doing it at the beginning of the year doesn't really seem too beneficial to me. But
maybe we can have Loretta, if you don't mind, maybe we can have that discussion at the end of this on whether to change that number and to add some money, and if that's possible, how much do you think we can add into there without hurting anything?
Right. At this point, we did not add anything additional. Being the difference, knowing that we would need to program or have a ending fund balance for future out years construction. So that's where it's kept. It's essentially in the same place, Commissioner. It's just not added to that protected line item for future roads.
Eventually, for the other commissioners, we just want to bring this up. Eventually, we are going to end up having some connections on the bypass. We're going to have those monies that are going to be needed for matching funds. I still hopefully think we will do something to bring something forward with Razor Road eventually. The amount of money it'll bring into the county by opening that up is astronomical. But we'll see what happens. That's why I'm asking those questions on this for the.
Yes, gotcha.
so for roads on the revenue, we don't really have any open PLRs. I need to move this amount into the beginning fund balance. So that's not truly an open PLR. And then moving on to the other funds, we have the $40,000 in Russellwood, and that one's already been approved during the support services, looking at the transfers out from REIT 2. And I believe, and then we have the equipment purchases coming in from the from roads and the utility. I think that's all roads actually. So that's a PLR that would need to be approved. So that's the only outstanding PLRs that we have for the revenue side of things, unless you have anything additional, Loretta.
Nope, that is it.
Okay. So did you want to talk any more about revenue, or did you want to move to expenditures?
Commissioners, any questions on the revenue side? Would you like to review at this time what the transfer in from roads is for ER&R, what that equipment comprises, or just wait until we get to the expenditure side?
I think waiting until we get to expenditure side works for me.
Okay.
I do have a quick comment though. In all of the budgets that we've been through, yours probably has the most, it has a variety of words that you don't normally see, like sale of scrap and junk.
Yes. Well, there is that.
There is.
Any other things that are that you're curious about, Commissioner?
No, it's just I can really understand that one as well.
Uh-huh.
My background fits right into that.
Yeah. I guess one other thing to point out on the revenue side, Commissioners, if I may, we did not bake in any new rate increases at this point. So when we get to the solid waste budget, for example, we are assuming just our standard cost of living increases, and we're not assuming a rate increase for the fund. We did not bake in the new metered rates at this point. So those are items that we need to bring back before commissioners later in, well, early in 2021.
Okay. I was going to ask a question real quick. We just received our increase from those that pick up our trash.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering if we were going to have an increase like they have an increase.
Richard's over here nodding yes. Yeah. And so we'll get to that discussion during solid waste. What we need in my mind to do is present to you some rate increase options, and then what implement on the program side to move towards our comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Okay.
That works.
All right.
Okay, so here's the expenditures.
Would you Mike to give just a, did we cut out or can we, yes, here?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, Jen.
Oh, no, it's okay. I wasn't sure if we lost you.
Yeah, oh no. Commissioners, would you like for Mike just to give, or myself, a really quick high-level overview of what we're doing with all of our great expenditures this year, or would you like to just focus on what the PLRs are?
You know, I wouldn't, it doesn't matter to me, honestly.
Okay.
It's up to the others.
I think commissioners in general, you've got an idea of what we're up to. We've got the base subs about our administrative expenditures. We've got our engineering expenditures. We've got our construction program. We have our operations, and then we also have our extraordinary operations where we code for our disaster funds. And then we also have capital improvements for the site here itself. And that's just it, kind of real high level. Our construction program reflects what our anticipated annual construction program is, which you have the hearing coming up here shortly before you, and you'll have a good idea of what all of those projects are that we'll be delivering as part of that program. All right.
Loretta, I do have a question about the 6-year and annual. So in this budget that's presented, will we need to make any adjustments to the construction side of things to reflect what's happening in that?
No, they should be consistent, Jennifer.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I'll take that back. They should be consistent, but if we get to the hearing and commissioners have some recommended changes and want to change something in our annual construction program that would affect the budget, then yes, we would need to make some changes in that regard.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. All right, so if we scroll down to our first PLR for road fund.
Is that the one you wanted, the $50,000?
Yes.
Victor says yes. We're on it. And Victor, you want to take that? Sorry.
Yes, we have 16 different PLRs that we're presenting to you. We've already discussed the 2 in revenue. So we have 14. And the first one of which in roads, Jennifer and I, we had discussed this, and it was, we zeroed it out. It's bar sub 520 in roads 105, excuse me, in roads fund 105. And I believe that was an adjustment for a minor adjustment, technical adjustment for, I believe that was unemployment. So that zeroed out. And so therefore our first item to discuss, and I'll just introduce it and let Mike take this over, is the amount of $50,000. And that's reflects a change in the way that we're doing business in terms of buying less and renting more operational equipment in roads. Mike, you want to?
Yes, but what we're requesting is for additional ability to rent equipment when we're doing county forces work, such as the 2 culvert projects we did this year. We end up renting larger excavators, extra rollers, pumps, and different pieces of equipment to help us. And we're going to continue to do these type of projects, but not in the range where we would want to purchase these size equipment, because they're extremely expensive. So renting them is very available, and that's kind of the gist of what we're trying to accomplish.
So renting makes more sense.
It does, and as opposed to purchasing the equipment for incidental use. Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about that line item?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. The next is the equipment that we are proposing to purchase for roads.
That's an amount of $1.22 million. And Michael has scheduled detail to that number, indicating the charges for ER&R vehicles. That's also, you'll see that item where the actual purchases take place in 501. You will find that identical number. So we would, with your concurrence, defer detailed discussion on the 105 item and discuss it in detail where the equipment would reside in 501, the equipment replacement revolving and replacement fund.
So the 1.2.
Yes, that's in bar sub 545 in the road fund 105.
Okay. And then the 501, 548 in revenue. Is that right?
It's actually in 3 different places because of the way that it has to be done. Sorry, I'm echoing. So we have in Fund 105, it goes out as an internal transfer into 501. 501 purchases the equipment, and then it goes into a revenue from roads into 501. Does that make sense? I said it kind of. It goes from roads into 501 ER&R and then out of 501.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the detail of those equipment purchases as shown in 501, we would defer discussion until we get to discussions on Fund 501. With your permission.
Let's just roll with that now. Okay. It's an expenditure out of roads, so we're here. Mike, you want to talk about what we're planning to?
So what we've done, Jeremy has been a great help in it. We've evaluated a lot of our equipment that we do have and comparing those to the needs that we have, the type of activities that we're going to perform. I've already requested to surplus several pieces of equipment briefing with you, and so you kind of get the idea. We're going to change over, but we are going to have to buy some stuff. So these things are based on our basically plan of clearing back to vegetation, improving the drainage, widening shoulders, and improving horizontal vertical curves, permanently road repairs, and then our final chip sealing and asphalt overlays. So certain pieces of equipment here can't rent, and so therefore we're looking to purchase. Would you like me to go down the list of equipment?
Commissioners, would you like the detail on the equipment itself, or is that?
I don't on that one. If you're telling me that they have to be purchased because they can't be rented and they're needed, that's good enough for me. I get that. But I'm just one.
Yeah, and the better majority are that way. The others that we're requesting are actually replacement of existing pickups and like the jet rod back truck. We've talked about that before. So, but the majority of it is pieces of equipment that we can't rent, and so therefore we're going to purchase them, and they're going to be part of our core operation. They're going to be used, if not daily, very often.
And the things that are not as necessary, you're open to purchasing used, as you have the recent.
Absolutely, yes.
That's why I thought. That's why I have faith in what you're asking from me this time.
Yes, 100%. If we can get, depending on if it's a core piece of equipment and the type of maintenance it needs and stuff, we always would evaluate a used source. Oh, absolutely.
along those lines, commissioners, sometimes when we have a nice used piece of equipment, we need to move quickly on it.
Right.
We just lost a really sweet opportunity.
Yes.
So,
I'm good with that. I think you should be in a position to take advantage of those opportunities.
Appreciate that.
yeah, very much so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schutte, Commissioner Trask, any thoughts, comments, words of wisdom on our equipment purchases?
Well, I don't think I have any words of wisdom on that, but I like the direction that you're headed, and I'm good with that.
I don't have very many words of wisdom anyway, but yeah, I'm confident in what you guys do and how you do it. So
It's amazing how things get streamlined when you have confidence in how it's handled that way.
that's true.
We will do our absolute best to maintain and keep that trust, commissioners.
So at this point, the PLR for the 1.22 million is approved. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm comfortable.
Yep, good.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, the next item is the purchase of capital machinery and equipment. And this one's a little bit trickier to explain, but I'm sure Mike will do a fine job explaining it.
Okay. So this was budgeted in 2020, and it was separated out by $50,000 in GPS survey equipment, $20,000 in building 1 records filing, $5,000 in a hoist for tailgate removals for dump truck. And what we also found out was $205,000 in a haul equipment trailer, as what it was described as. So that's around $280,000. And if you add in tax, you're probably getting pretty close to the $309,000 that was requested. So we've kind of discovered this, and we got looking at it. Okay, we want to go ahead and get the survey equipment. So we've Mike McIrvin is working on that, getting some quotes. But we are concerned about, we're getting close to the end of the year, and whether we can, if we're going to spend this money, are we going to be able to get it spent? So that's why it's kind of rolled over into next year as kind of a cover. What we did, in 2019, we ordered some equipment and it didn't arrive until 2020. And so it came out of 2020 budget for equipment purchases. So that shortened amount what we could have purchased with our through ER&R. So what we're proposing is, here's one, $50,000 with the GPS. We'll go ahead and try to purchase that. The $20,000 for the building 1 records filing system, we're going to let that roll over for sure. $5,000 hoist, we're going to take care of that. That's not a problem. But the equipment trailer, haul trailer, we talked to Jeremy, and he doesn't, he wasn't quite sure where that number come from. So, and whether that need is there. So what I was looking at, if we could find some of the equipment that we're talking about buying next year, if we could find them now, I'd like to be able to utilize that to $205,000 maybe for 1 or 2 bucket trucks that we could purchase in 2020, and then we could not spend that in 2021 if the board was willing to let us make that attempt. So I know that sounded confusing, but
so you're asking for a change of use in this year's allocations in order to be able to get rid of it for next year's, or a change in use of this year's allocations so you can continue with the same number in next year's budget for the original request?
if I can get it spent this year, I won't need it next year.
Right.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, and what you're asking for it to be spent on are the bucket trucks. You and I had that discussion, and I don't know if you had it with the commissioners, but went down when they had a slide looking at the situations that they're sitting in. You can go ahead and try and get Asplund out here, but they don't like to go up those hills and work those things down. There's a lot of times where our staff is working with the wrong equipment or have to go out and get somebody else to do it. Them having some used bucket trucks seems a little high for me on that, but seems like a great use of our equipment monies, because that is something that if you're not using, as long as it's maintained, it will keep for years and years and years and years.
Exactly.
I would be supportive of that if we wanted to allow for that change of use, since they didn't even know what it was for in the first place. And then you could get rid of it for this year. So we'll show a $300,000 difference here, or two. What are we talking in this?
We would, yeah, potentially.
Yes, we would near $300,000. If we could spend this now and then not have to budget for it in 2021, we would reduce that by near that.
Commissioners, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I am too, and I appreciate the reevaluation of things as needs and opportunities arise. So I appreciate that a lot. I'm good with the change.
Yeah, I'm good as well. I know, and we've talked about this before, and I think it's a great idea, a great investment for Mason County. It'll sure help keep our roads safer, less trees falling down or limbs. So I agree.
Absolutely. Thank you, commissioners. And along those lines, Commissioner Schutte needs an opportunity and fresh eyes. I thank both Victor and Mike and saying, what's this number? Where'd this come from? And tell me more. And the discussions around and the resolution and some good recommendations. So
nothing wrong with the critical eye on the budget. I like
absolutely.
All I ask is when you get these bucket trucks, the ones you choose, please make them so they can handle as a crane the best you can for bigger signs or bigger catastrophes. If we're
we discussed that on the North Shore there.
Yeah,
and that's kind of it. You drive down the North Shore, you go, oh my goodness, we need to do some work here. Oh. Some proactive.
My friend, you don't. I drive down it all the time. It wasn't until I was stopped underneath those things talking to you that the real reality comes into play. They look like they were going to come down on us any minute.
Yeah.
And I like Commissioner Schutte's photo of his drive home the other day too.
Definitely needed a bucket truck then.
Right. All right.
So I'm understanding, so we're spending that money now and not budgeting any of that amount next year, or are we leaving some of that in next year?
We the plan is to roll over the 20,000 for the building records file.
Correct.
And then spend the rest of it. But if we can't get it spent before December 31st, actually, what I mean by spent, then we would request to roll it over and continue to purchase the GPS in 2021.
Well, except for we're setting up the budget now, so we kind of need to know, are you going to spend it this year, or are you going?
We are going to spend it this year.
So do we want to leave more than the 20,000 as kind of a placeholder in case it doesn't get spent, or how do you want to handle that, Commission on Public Works?
Why don't we just leave a 100K in there just as a safety measure? That's just my idea. Just because there might be other equipment or things that come up, that would be a good place to reach in if we had to for that fast action that they were talking about earlier. What do you think, commissioners?
I agree. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with having a safety valve there.
And that works for us. Thank you, commissioners. Okay, next item, Commissioner Schutte's favorite, salt shed. We are planning to get that sucker done. So we're closing that out, and the item that we have here is for installing the infrastructure to the water, sewer, and reclaim for the Public Works facility. And that number may be refined. We're meeting with the city in a couple weeks or so. But at this point, that's what we have for our connection. And then just a small amount that may or may not be needed for contract closeout on the salt storage shed.
We're gonna get a thank you letter for the money. Just kidding.
What?
And I just history. I'm going over history in my head. My apologies.
Okay.
No, Commissioner, you have to send a thank you letter.
Yeah, that's how it works, right?
Let us know when the building dedication is for the salt shed too. I want to make sure I get that on my calendar.
Oh, we will.
Believe it or not, I would, as you know, I'd like to be there. I've been dealing with that one for 6 years.
I know. Maybe we could have a celebration salt sculpture contest or something.
I'll bring the eggs, hard-boiled eggs for the salt.
Okay, perfect.
I was gonna say bring the tequila, but
Ooh, yeah.
Well, better yet.
I like the way Shooty thinks. It's been fun too, going to the EOC meetings and seeing all the cement trucks, the long beams. So it's been quite a ride.
All right. Any other questions on that, commissioners?
Nope.
Are we good with moving that into maintenance then?
Yes, for me.
yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So that wraps up road fund, correct?
Yeah, I believe so, except on number, what was it, number 1 for 50,000? Are we good with that one? I didn't put any notes in there. That was for the operating rentals and leases increase?
Well, that's the maintenance, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we said maintenance on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Before we leave this fund, Loretta, after looking at what's been done here, is there any chance you want to move any of that money into the new roads fund? So that
We could certainly encumber probably up to $1 million there. If
I would be ecstatic with that, Loretta.
So right now, we need to look at our beginning fund balance because I think we're estimated a little bit low at 11.5 million, maybe.
I agree, Jen.
We usually are.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to estimate it too high, but we should probably look at that. But right now, we have, I believe, 20% of the operating from 2019 is this 3.154 million. And so that we have 4 million in new roads ending fund balance. And so that leaves us with, less than $1 million to work with. And I know I
thought you said 11 million. What am I counting wrong?
Well, this is the ending fund balance for roads. So we've got 8,094,000 left. So we start with 11.5 million. And that's shown here on the revenue side. And then once we add in all of our revenues and remove out all of our expenditures, we're left with $8,094,408. So we have this amount to work with right now, unless we increase our beginning fund balance from 11.5 to some other number.
Which we will. I'm anticipating that we will underexpend our professional services line items because Mike and the engineering team have been super efficient about how they've been going about their design services. So I will expect that our beginning fund balance will increase.
So what are you saying, Jennifer? You don't think it's proper to do right now? I'd like to see us do it if we can do it, but if we can't.
I think that we should come back to it because we need to make all of the PLR changes in here, make sure that this number is a close number to what we actually think it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then on the general fund side, we changed the reserve to 25% instead of 20%.
Yeah, we did that for other reasons though, Jennifer, not.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that on the road side, you didn't want to increase that number as well to 25%.
I'm not looking forward to that. Like I said, it was done for a different purpose.
Okay. So, so yeah, at this point, I think that we should come back to that. That would be my recommendation.
I'm comfortable with that. Loretta, keep track if we can move that forward, because eventually we are going to be getting new roads. This is where Commissioner Trask, this is where that money for the Gateway project is sitting, as well as some of the other stuff. This is when it was created for certain projects. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is just keep that growing. So when the time comes, we actually have the funds available for the matching to make those big events happen. We haven't had new roads here in, what is it now, Loretta? 12 years, 10 years?
At least.
This is our opportunity to finally do that and to make a difference for infrastructure in our economic development communities. That's why it was put in, so that we could finally have a big impact that may change how money comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Commissioner. I appreciate you updating me and explaining where that was at. You keep talking about it, but I was like, where is it? So,
where is that BARS line item? It's also a way, commissioners, of encumbering or showing that we need to set aside, as Commissioner Netherland said, match for our projects that are identified on our 6-year tip. And we, if we're going to deliver those projects, we certainly have to have the match available for them.
Thank you on that. I'm ready to go.
Thank you. And as far as the reserve, Jennifer and commissioners, I know that we typically plan for at least 3 months, just in the event that cash flow becomes an issue. And we've been fortunate the last 2 years that has not been the case. But I certainly recall not too long ago when you absolutely needed that reserve just to have available for payroll. So 3 months certainly is a good target.
But we upped it for roads last year, the year before too.
We did. Correct.
Yeah, we always used to shoot for, I think it was like 2.2 million. And so I think that the 3.154 is a good number, but
yeah,
I just wanted to bring that up, that we did change the general fund, so yeah. Okay. So we'll revisit that maybe on Monday. Sound good?
sounds good.
Okay. So did you want to just go in order by fund, Loretta?
Yes, please.
Okay.
If that's agreeable with commissioners and yourself.
Absolutely.
Kind of easiest to track on the spreadsheet there.
Sure.
May not make logical sense, but easy to track on the spreadsheet.
So we don't have anything for Paths and Trails Fund 106 besides, state auditor and internal allocation charges. And in Fund 192, Skokomish flood zone, We have no PLRs.
Jennifer and commissioners, if I may jump in real quickly about Paths and Trails and Skoke for a moment. Paths and Trails, although we did not budget for any expenditures, TIPCAP made a recommendation to, they were presented a project for the dike repair off of Roselle Road, and as a potential grant match for that project. And TIPCAP was very supportive of that and felt that that would be a good use of Paths and Trails funds. We concur with that because there is a definite road link. If that project were to proceed, it would protect Roselle Road as well from flooding. I did talk with Mindy Harlow about the status of the project, and I don't believe at this point in time they would be looking for grant funds in 2021. But it's possible that may change somewhere along the line. And then of course we would brief commissioners and potentially need to do some type of a budget amendment. But at this point, it looks like if there's an ask, it would be in 2022.
Can we put a little something in there to make that a little stronger?
As we could certainly put some type of a line item in there that would identify.
No, I meant, we've gotten that funds from different things, has built that up. And we build it up ourselves just a little bit by adding a little something from our budget into it.
Like doing a transfer from the road fund?
Yeah, or something, just to have a little more. That number has been there for a long time.
13,000 more a year.
Yeah, it grows about $12,000 or so a year. Is that correct, Vic and Jennifer?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's just a little bit, but when the time comes, we're going to need a little bit. It wouldn't probably hurt for us to drop, if anybody was interested, because it's not for one project. This is for any project, to drop 50,000 or something in there to help strengthen that.
I think that if there was a project need, then it would be easy enough to evaluate it at that time, commissioners. The fund itself is set up just strictly as a percentage of what our cap funds are, correct? Yeah. And that's how that allocation.
Yeah, the only reason why is 8 years ago it was different, and it keeps going. We're getting to the point now where it's going to be usable, but I was just trying to speed it up a little bit. But I don't have to have it. I was just throwing it out there as just an idea, because if we had an extra 50 or 100,000 in that may, when you have the money, the opportunities come more often.
The only hesitation I would have about it is adding some road fund in there is that it would place a restriction upon your road fund.
Exactly.
The Paths and Trails monies are coded specifically for Paths and Trails. You have to justify what that means and where that money can be placed. So it restricts it a lot more than our normal maintenance road fund.
No, I agree with that. I was looking to restrict it for that purpose. But again, I'm okay with not. I was just throwing it out there.
Yep. No, it could, we can add to it if we find a project that we want to, move forward on, and then we can, always add to it with a road fund balancer.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
And then if there's nothing else on Paths and Trails, moving on to Skokomish, there is not a PLR for this project, but commissioners, I'll seek your advice on this. If we are to go to construction this summer on that project, if we're able to secure all of the real estate, then we would need to do as we discussed previously, have a short-term loan that would come into the fund that we would then transfer out to the Army Corps of Engineers to pay for the local match of construction. And then we would have also a revenue into the fund coming from the conservation district, where they would use a grant to reimburse back. So it's all about how we want to portray and what we want to put out in our budget this year. And
That's a lot of money though, right?
it is. It's probably right around I want to say around $6.7 million.
Yeah. We definitely can't just add that in.
No. And this is something that the Finance Committee has been looking at and has been tracking and just waiting basically about when do we need this short-term loan or bridge loan, for lack of a better description.
Now, over the years, we've had other things that we've needed money out of when we had that flood district and stuff like that. Is there anything that we need to put money in for this right now just to keep it solvent? Commissioner Schutte, is there anything that you would like to see in this line? He may not be available at this moment, so let's go ahead and move on to.
Okay.
I think his furnace guy is there.
Yeah, just let's keep a placeholder on that, because again, we've expended monies out of this area here for different things over the years. It might be nice to consider putting a few dollars more there to be able to reach into. Again,
Yeah.
my 2 cents.
Yep. Well, and we continue without a ongoing revenue source for this fund.
Yeah.
We will continue to draw that down. Our annual gauge maintenance agreement is in the order of about $13,000. So just that little hit every year, it won't take long before the fund is depleted without some additional revenues added.
And that's why I thought if we're just putting a small amount in here and there and here and there, I know overall it all adds up, but at least we'll have it there when we need it. And if something bad happens, we're not going to have to, it'll still be there. We can get it if we had to, but we're not going to have to just hustle for a dime if it's already there, if we build it up slowly. That's why if Commissioner Schutte was there, I would again recommend, like the other, that we drop some money there.
Sorry, I had somebody at my door. Can we just, I think I'm good with what you're suggesting. Do we have a dollar amount in mind?
I don't. That's why I was asking you if you had a dollar amount that you'd be comfortable with, just to help prop it up. And maybe it doesn't have to be a huge amount, but maybe we do a little bit this year. And if I'm around, maybe we do a little bit next year. Start to build that to where there's something there.
And are you thinking about where would the money come from, or you're talking about just adding in a revenue line and then an expenditure line?
Well, there's already, my eyes are really bad. I did chemo today, guys, and it's affected me pretty bad. But there's usually a line there that already has something. What do we have in it now?
Well, we're looking at
for the scope value.
So for the USGS survey, we have 6,000. And then the interfund professional services, 25,000. Repairs and maintenance, 10,000. Interfund repairs and maintenance, 2,000.
What line do you take the 13,000 yearly out of, Loretta?
It's the USGS gauge.
Okay, but that's only set for 6,000. You were saying there's a yearly cost of about 13?
Yes, I'm sorry. That's the total. That our cost share amount is listed in the budget line item, the 6. My apologies, commissioners.
Yeah. Like I said, we used to have the this. It wasn't stormwater. What was it? It was the flood fund.
Yes.
Did we drain that completely?
This is the fund that we're looking at here.
So there should be a beginning fund balance, right?
There is.
An end fund? That's what I was talking about.
And we're at about 100 and some thousand now, Jennifer and Victor.
Yeah, we had a beginning fund balance estimate of 94,000.
Yeah.
So,
And that should be pretty accurate since there isn't any levy coming in, or, you know, barely any to speak of.
so Kevin, what do you think about 2550 for this year, just to start to build that for when we do have the different issues that happen?
Yeah.
Or
You know,
more.
I think I'm sorry, what?
Or more. I'm just throwing a number out.
I would
time.
I would maybe start on the low end. It may be at 25 and just sort of monitor it. I don't know. Loretta, do you have any thoughts? Or
Quite honestly, any little bit would be helpful. We know that we'll have our ongoing gauge cost. We know that we will be on the hook for operation and maintenance of the facilities that are constructed as part of the general investigation. So anything that can go into the fund to start building it back up to be able to pay for those annual expenditures would be helpful. And then just as a point of reference, when we had the emergency repair here a couple years ago, that was on the order of close to $100,000.
Yeah.
So all that it takes is one little event like that, and
Even if we put in 25,000, that's going to be offset by the expenditures. So we end up with 12 grand. So Commissioner, I'd be comfortable with 50 if you would, or 25 if that's what you think is best.
yeah, I mean, if we can do 50, let's do 50.
And where is this money? Where's the source of the revenue coming from?
Can we use it from the ending fund balance of the
Fund 192?
Am I the only one that gets that loud explosion stuff?
we just did.
Yeah.
I have speakers up loud. It rocks me. It's only on yours, Jennifer. It's yours that does it. So, do you have any ideas where we could do this, Jennifer, where it will still work?
Well, I mean, we could take it out of beginning fund balance and put it into the expenditure side. So we have, you know, that 94,000 beginning fund. You know, we have the $20,000 coming in from Mason Conservation District, and then interest earnings, which are going to be next to nothing, 500. So, you know, we have the total of 114,000. If you want it to come from an outside revenue source,
I would be comfortable, and this may surprise Kevin, I'd be comfortable out of general fund for the special use if we're allowed.
That gives me a little bit of heartburn. I think it's well intentioned, but I'm not sure where we would necessarily have the capacity there. You know, maybe we can instead of belaboring this, we're maybe just have Loretta and Jennifer and Victor kind of think through it and come up with some options for us, and we can decide down the line. I don't know.
Yeah, the other thing that just jumps to mind immediately, commissioners, is the storm drainage fund, the 480, which has just been kind of sitting there idling. So that's a potential.
How much is in that one?
That, I want to say, Victor's jumping on that. Do something, Victor?
480.
Oh.
Has a fund balance of 180,000. Oh, that's 180,717. I believe.
And if you remember right, a portion of that fund was seeded with both REIT and road funds. So we couldn't move a percent greater than what the REIT contribution is.
Well, and that's the other pocket it could come out of initially too, for, wouldn't that be REIT project?
Potentially, it depends on what the nature of the work would be, but yes, potentially. So anywho, we can, Victor and Jennifer and myself can hammer out some options and bring those back to commissioners.
Thank you.
Just out of, I mean, just out of curiosity, I guess. I mean, we made the repairs the last time out of what fund?
Out of the Skokomish Flood Control Zone Fund.
Okay, and that's why we just used what was there.
Yeah.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's why we're not set up, because we don't have that coming in. That's why we're not set up unless we do something to be set up for.
Exactly. And that's, I think we were sitting, to something prior to that repair.
So yeah, maybe you can look and see if it can come out of REIT, if we can set it up as REIT or some other way to transfer it in. But yeah, I agree with Kevin and Jennifer and Commissioner Trask. Let's bring this back with some opportunities and ideas on how to do it. But I think we all agree that we need to do a little something there.
So Loretta, on the expense side for Fund 192 for now, do you think that what is in this budget is sufficient for 2021, or did you want to take some out of ending fund balance and allocate it into expenditures?
I think it should be sufficient, Jennifer, with the exception of if we gather all of the real estate and we're able to go to construction, then we'll need to do as I described at the beginning, come back with a budget amendment.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so are we ready to move into the landfill, Fund 402, or solid waste?
We can visit. I really don't want to move there.
Richard is so ready, and Victor as well.
Okay. Let's start out.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Good luck.
What do you want to start? PW 11?
Yeah, that's
top of the charts there.
Right in 402.
And this,
Operating minutes.
yeah, under 402 PW for PLR number 11. And this provides for leasing. It's not just 26 drop boxes and recycle boxes. It's 26 recycle boxes and probably 15 drop boxes. We've seen this is where it should be when we're renting items. It was unclear to me looking at the budget exactly where it was getting charged to, although the recycle contract, the Dropbox contract were fully spent. We were kind of overspent on rental of operating and rentals and leases. And so we increased this by the amount it would take actually to rent those items.
So Richard, was the upshot that there was coding that was in the wrong bars line item? Is that what it was, Victor?
That was the best we could figure when we were first looking at this.
Okay.
We're just trying to clean this up to put the money where it's supposed to be, where we're actually going to charge it to.
So it sounds like, I mean, if the expenditure is closer to 60,000 rather than 25,000, that this is a maintenance, is that?
I believe so. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Commissioners, are you good with that, moving that 35,000 into maintenance?
Yes.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure which one to do next. They're both so much fun.
Do number 12.
Move down the line. Never
That one's easy, because I think that one should be moved to 0. So that should be quick and easy.
All right.
Yeah, on 12?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I said I didn't develop that number, I wasn't sure. And so that was discussed earlier under ER&R.
So that one is, but 402, the landfill has no equipment asked. Is that correct?
What is that, please?
No equipment ask.
No equipment ask, you're right.
So this number should really be 0, and the budget number is 75,461.
Okay.
At this time, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll agree to that.
Okay. And okay, PLR number 6. We talked about briefly this morning. The briefing was showing just what it would cost to get the scale and have the scale itself installed from that vendor. That was a current estimate, a quote from the vendor that we currently have a scale through. The parts that weren't included on that were the minor electrical connection work that would need to occur, and some paradigm issues that would have to also be implemented as well. And that's captured under a 10% contingency, bringing the whole estimate up to $156,499.
And we talked about this at the briefing this morning, correct? Except for the minor electrical and.
Right. I mean, it includes the scale. It's upgraded to digital, which provides for a longer life, a longer warranty period. They are submersible in case we have water issues. And it also, like I said, it provides for a 10-year warranty instead of a 5.
When do we ever have water issues here?
Right.
Never.
I got to back up. That also includes 4 spare load cells to come with it, so you have them. So that would be nice too.
In addition to the surface of the scale itself.
Yeah, that's the whole scale. The whole package comes with 4 spare load cells. It's 40% of the current load scales that are in it. We'll have spares for it.
So do we want to move that to maintenance then?
So yeah, and I had to take another caller for a second. This is for the Yells Hill one, or?
Yes.
Correct.
I'm still hoping we're going to take some of the investment by closing off that Kitsap connection, that will take some of that investment money and get a scale into Belfair. Just a reminder.
No, I have not forgot about that. I tell you the truth on that. We're looking at a few options, and I think we'll have to do some site clearing, maybe some logging, sell some of the logs, make room for it, make it a nice facility.
Well, I think when the time comes, we're also going to generate more revenue, because currently people drive right past it, don't want to deal with it the way we have it set up. The cost is exponentially higher, so they don't use it. They take everything into Kitsap.
Right.
Residential. So
that's the truth.
I'm good with this being maintenance. Has to be done. We have to get there, if I understand it correctly anyway.
Yes, we do. Better to do it when we can plan for it, rather than just be shut down at a moment's notice.
Right. That scares the heck out of me.
Yep. And again, I keep expecting we'd be able to find one used one for the North Mason area if we look around, because so many things have closed down.
Well, you have a point. There probably are some out there, and now we get through this budget session, I'll have more time to look.
So we're good with that, moving it to maintenance,
Yes.
commissioners?
I'm good.
Thank you. So now PLR number 7.
Oh, goodness.
I expected some of that scary music to come with this one.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, we were investigating internalization. And this is basically the bare bones of what we would need to invest to make that happen on any level. I mean, all this includes modification of one of the receiving areas. We have an engineer's estimate of $1 million. Modification of the building, because we would of that same receiving area, we would have to be able to keep the trailer and its contents dry at all times. That was $350,000. Purchasing recycling boxes is $192,000. Purchasing a roll-off truck with a trailer so we could be efficient and haul 2 drop boxes at the same time is another $301,000. Then we'd have to modify a roadway, do some paving, account for stormwater runoff, capture and treatment. And then of course, we'd have to have a live bottom trailer to take any of the recycling that we got up to the nearest MRF or municipal recycling facility. And all that comes to $2.34 million.
And the end benefit would be, what would it look like financially?
Between the two, doing what we're doing in internalization?
Yeah, if we were to expend this money and internalize, what would be the long-term outcome?
Here's where the scary music comes.
Right.
About $700 a month. And that's using real numbers from both parties, from average market value for the Pacific Northwest of all commodities. And I used all of the recycling that we amassed in July to use this. So I had real amounts of what we had and then just did a comparison. I could send you a spreadsheet and go over it with you anytime.
And the one expenditure that is not included in here is we would need to add 1 FTE as well.
That's true. This is just that. It wouldn't include that. Yeah, we'd have to have a full-time driver because they would be making 3 trips at least every day to just haul drop boxes, recycling boxes back to Shelton. In July, we had 108 boxes that needed transport, just recycling. I know we looked at this earlier in the year, way back, probably March or something like that. We were thinking it would be a much bigger difference. But at that time, that was when we had the thought that we were going to see an 85% increase in our recycling contract. And it turned out to actually be about 5.5%.
Yeah, that is the other thing to keep in mind about what that initial
right, the excitement
comparison and excitement about a potential move to internalizing might look like. And commissioners, we know this is a big number and a lot to digest in a budget session. It's not meant to, we don't have any expectation that a decision should be made around this number, and absolutely welcome a work session or follow up to go through the numbers in detail. But we certainly wanted to share with you that we absolutely heard your direction to be looking at internalizing and what that cost might look like and what are the benefits, and absolutely want to hone that because some other eyes on it would be helpful, and there may be things that we're missing, and absolutely want to review that with you.
definitely.
Yeah, I'll just say, I guess, for today, this has to stay as a PLR, but I definitely would be interested in taking a look at the the work that you did and just sort of having a better understanding of it. And it just very well might be that it doesn't pencil, and that's okay too. That's just how it goes sometimes. But I'd like to have more of a conversation about it.
Oh, I agree, 100%. I mean, I think, like Loretta said, I think that really we should have a workshop, something to that effect, and go through this.
And I agree also on I can't get around it in any other way but to keep it as PLR right now with those numbers and with what you're saying. I'd love to, as Commissioner Schutte said, I'd love to have further discussions on this. I'd like to see the numbers are pencil out. But I'm going to ask you to also bring us another option. I'm not happy where we're at with what we're doing. I'm just one person I know, but very uncomfortable with it, and I'm uncomfortable with these numbers and how this has come about. I'm hoping that you were going to find and bring to us a different option.
I think we should keep it as a PLR. Also, do you, I know we asked, so the different recycling, how much actually makes it to the recyclers and how much goes into the dump? I'd just be curious to know what that looks like.
Okay, I do have a little bit of it's on my computer in another room, but I do have a lot of that information.
That works for me. Thank you.
We're good.
Richard have done a great deal of work and analysis on this, and I know they're really excited, commissioners, for you to dig in and chew on it. So we absolutely welcome a follow-up with you.
So we'll keep it as a PLR, follow up with a workshop for different ideas. Is that a good note that I have in there? Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on, I think that's the last of the landfill.
Yep, now we'll dive into North Bay, figuratively.
Well, it depends on the day, Richard.
Actually, this $4,000, it's actually a 20% reduction from last year. There's so many things you could modify there at any of these facilities, even if they're brand new. It is hard to nail down exactly what it is. This number is more based off of historical spending over the years, about how much do we spend modifying and repairing things. And that's why we actually reduced that down to 4,000, because it's not just money that limits us on being able to make these modifications. It's time and manpower and other items like that. So that appears to have been our historical capacity to do those sort of things. And so that's why I actually reduced it. It's like, we don't have the time and the manpower to take these on, then no sense budgeting for it.
Real.
Yeah, just try to make this as real as it is.
Is everybody okay with moving that into maintenance level?
Sure.
Yes.
Commissioner Schutte, are you okay with that?
Oh, I said, yeah, I think
oh, okay.
And I said, yeah, at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Then we have this 31,739, but I think that again is the difference between last year's rate and this year's ER and R rate. So it's not really a real ask. Is that right, Richard?
I don't have that on mine, but yeah, we don't have any real ask for equipment. No.
Okay. So there was only the $4,000 in Fund 403, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then we have nothing in Fund 404 is going away. That one has $0. So yay, we got rid of another
good job.
Useless fund. Yeah. So, And then Fund 405, we should probably actually do the same with this one as well. I believe this was like the startup fund for the utilities, and it's now just sitting there, $3,986 that we carry forward every year, and we really could disperse it among the different utilities and get rid of another fund.
That was our, I believe that was our finding, or we concurred with that during our discussions last week, Jennifer. So that's, I believe we're still in accords with that. It's sitting useless and occupying no useful time for discussion.
So commissioners, if you're in agreement, we can do that in this budget process.
I'm in agreement.
Let's do it.
Great. So Victor, then I'll get with you and we'll talk about the percentages to allocate that amount.
Sounds great, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe our discussion was the same on Fund 406.
Yeah, and Fund 406 is not budgeted anymore, so that one is already gone. But yes,
Okay.
Good thought. Okay, so so then we're into Fund 411 Russellwood.
Okay, I think I just have one there, right?
That's it. Yes.
And
Oh, we had some discussions about some numbers there earlier.
yes. Okay, so Russellwood, it says water facility plan, but well, part of it is the water facility plan. It's actually to finish putting the meters in. We have a few very difficult meters that are left to put in. We'll get those done as soon as possible so we can implement the rates. And then I believe we should have enough left over to do a replacement of a pressure reducing valve near the lower end of the system. Right now, those people down at the low end probably have water pressure out of their faucets is close to a pressure washer. So, I mean, that's great if you live down at the bottom and you don't mind fixing your faucets now and then, but
Right, your plumbing can handle it.
right, it's probably like a $15,000 job to replace this pressure reducing valve. So that is in the works as well.
So that I believe would all be REIT eligible. And you know, we have the 70,796 in the loan, the USDA loans. So we probably could actually allocate a little bit more from REIT 2 if the commission is open to that, and if Public Works think that is okay.
That was the conversation. How much did they really need?
Mm-hmm.
I think that Russellwood is going to need as much as they can get. That would be my opinion. I mean,
No, that's true. I mean, if there was if there was money available like that, I mean, yeah, there's a couple other things we would definitely like to get accomplished. That especially the electrical system
Yes.
at the well
The
house.
pump house.
Yeah, that is in dire need. How much, I don't know right off the top of my head, to be honest, but I could find out in a real hurry.
Yeah, maybe you could bring us some numbers and
Yes,
we
Okay.
could talk about it more.
that'll make Bob happy, I'll tell you that.
I could see that close to.
Yeah.
Well, please bring that to us shortly.
You bet.
so for now, are we good with moving this amount into maintenance, or do we want to hold off on that?
Might as well move it in there.
And then just put a note that additional information is coming.
Okay.
Yep, I'm good with that.
Jennifer, what was the number you wanted to move into it? You had a number earlier, you said.
Well, I was thinking it was 100,000 when we sat down and looked at the budget, but with this 38,704 plus the 70,000, I mean, and then the maintenance that is probably eligible on it, I would think probably 110,000 total at this.
So just an additional 10,000 is all you're saying?
Yeah, at this point.
I say we just do it and do it.
And Loretta and Richard, are you in agreement with that, or do you have any other thoughts or different ideas on that?
Yeah, no, 110 is what
That'll work.
I'm adding up as well. And then if we come up with the electrical improvements in the well house, I could see that being at least $30,000 to $50,000 potentially, but we will get numbers for you.
Yep.
Okay.
So the other commissioners okay with just adding your 10,000 you requested, Jennifer?
I am.
I'm good.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so that takes care of Fund 411, Russellwood. And now we have Beards Cove, Fund 412. And I believe there's only 2 items in there. Did we lose Public Works?
I was gonna say hello. What do you know about it, Jennifer? Hit us.
So, I mean, just that they're, water meter installations, $10,000, hydrant replacement, $5,000. That's about all that
I think that's necessary. I'm good with moving those over.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
Okay. Commissioner Schutte, are you good?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, they dropped off completely. Look at that.
Hi, sorry, commissioners, we're back.
That's all right. Stay off the line. You just got your money.
Great. You want us to just hang
Good
up
job,
again?
Jennifer. Good job.
Yeah.
Finish too while you were off. Is there anything else you want to say about that? I don't know if you heard our discussion.
Yeah,
on that.
don't snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory, though, guys.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
We're good.
Great. So I think that was all on Beards Cove. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about Beards Cove?
Nope.
Okay, then moving on to Belfair.
But the Beers Cove is pretty simple. There's very few water meters. I think just 2.
We have 2 left.
Yeah, and hydrants. It's a replace as needed kind of deal. They're not as bad as we initially thought.
So amazingly, we have no PLRs in Belfair Sewer and Water.
How is that possible? That's a first in all the years.
I think because it was already talked about, the revenue is there, which is another weird thing for Belfair. So
when pigs fly, you got to worry about carrying an umbrella because you know what comes out.
Exactly.
The money is there in theory. How about that? So anything that you want to go over on Belfair at this time? Public Works?
Well, just that work continues, and just a huge hats off to Richard and Bob and the team. That I'm super excited about the progress they're making on just assessing our assets and being realistic about needs. And I hope that commissioners are feeling good about the fact that we're not shying away from what needs to be done out there. And we may not necessarily have all the funds in hand to get it done, but at least we're identifying what the challenges are and putting a plan together forward to deal with them.
Here's a fun fact. Lift Station 1 in Belfair has 2 functioning pumps in it. That's the first time since I've been here.
Don't jinx it, Richard.
Woo.
somebody's gonna flush a big full-fledged beach towel down there, and we'll be screwed up again.
I might add, I believe that's an accomplishment that's been accomplished in the last week. Is that correct, Richard?
Yeah, that second pump the brand new second pump just got put in last week.
Yeah, I saw him.
So that's good. And our second Anox pump is back, which is huge because that's the other thing that could have shut down the whole town is we only had one pump.
Again, this next
figuratively speaking, that is.
This next year, Richard, we need to talk about redundancy. We have already started, but we need to start to implement.
Yep. We're doing better.
Okay, so moving on to Fund 428, the landfill reserve. So we have 280,000 as a PLR ask, and then a reduction of 4,500 in water lab and groundwater monitoring.
Right. It's 20-year after closure. We did another 2 years of post-closure testing with ecology. That's been completed. Now we just got to work it out with Department of Health and Ecology, make sure that they're all good. We can decommission it and end post-care operations. And that includes removing everything, removing the gas collection and flare system, the condensate traps, gas monitoring probes, decommissioning the groundwater wells, all of that stuff. We did find gas probe number 1, so I do anticipate having to do a little testing, but we've got that covered.
So this is kind of an exciting time, commissioners, to actually be able to complete our post-closure efforts at the landfill. And that's what this budget item reflects.
Well, I think that's awesome.
We'll include that in our workshop too. Now what to do with that area. What do you want to do? Dog park? I don't know.
Let's think about some other thoughts.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, so is everybody good with those PLRs, moving those into maintenance?
I'm good.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, then we don't have anything for the Beards Cove Reserve, Fund 429, and then Fund 480. We don't have any PLRs for that either. So the last thing that we have to talk about is Fund 501, the ER&R. And actually, we already talked about that with the approval of the roads equipment of 1.22 million.
Anything further on that, commissioners?
Not for me.
Me either.
I'm good.
All right, pretty good timing. It's 5:01.
Woo!
Ending on 501, 501.
They locked the door out here, so I gotta go.
Okay. Perfect.
All
And
right, thanks,
again,
everybody.
thank you, Victor, for jumping in first, head first, whatever. This whirlwind. I really appreciate Victor's counsel and again, Jennifer, your assistance and in getting us up and rolling and familiarized. And I know Victor's really looking forward to chewing in more.
Oh, yes, I'm working on equipment rental rates and utility rates as we speak. And I would like to add that it has been an absolute pleasure to work with you, Jennifer. So,
Thank you. The same. It's been great to work with you.
That's good to hear. Very cool.
All right, everybody, have a great day.
Thanks,
All
you
right.
guys. Have a great night.
Thank
Thank
you guys.
you.
Commissioner, are we done? Do we
We're
have
done.
anything? Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye.